My phone buzzed during a safety meeting. Unknown number. One message. Your wife left her underwear at my place last night. The photo showed lace underwear on an unfamiliar nightstand. Definitely Elin's favorite pair. The expensive ones she claimed were too delicate for our regular laundry routine. I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold in the construction trailer. Around me, Jim Morrison from corporate droned on about hard hat regulations and fall protection protocols. 67 construction workers sat in folding chairs, half of them already asleep, the other half playing games on their phones. My thumb moved without conscious thought. Forward. Family group chat. Send. The moment I hit that button, I knew I'd made a mistake. Our family group chat had 63 members. My parents, Elin's parents, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, even my grandmother, who barely knew how to use her smartphone but somehow managed to send prayer emojis at all hours. Brooks, you paying attention? Morrison's voice cut through my panic. Yeah, absolutely, I lied, shoving my phone into my pocket as it started vibrating like an angry wasp. Fall protection. Very important. The vibrations didn't stop. Message after message flooded in. I could practically feel the chaos erupting through the device. Morrison continued his presentation about safety harnesses while my marriage imploded in real time. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was learning about fall protection while my entire life crashed down around me. My phone rang. Elin's ringtone, that annoying pop song she'd programmed in last Christmas. I declined the call. It rang again immediately. Take 5, everyone, Morrison announced, probably noticing my obvious distraction. I stepped outside the trailer into the October morning air. The construction site buzzed with activity. Cranes moving steel beams, concrete trucks rumbling past, workers shouting instructions over the machinery noise. Normal sounds of a normal day, except nothing felt normal anymore. My phone showed 47 missed messages and 12 missed calls, all from family members, all asking variations of the same question. What the heck is this? I called Elin back. What did you do? She screamed before I could say hello. My mother just called me crying. My sister is asking if we're getting divorced. What did you do, Kellan? I got an interesting text message, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Want to explain why your underwear is at someone else's place? I don't know what you're talking about. Someone's playing a sick joke. You should have called me first instead of humiliating our entire family. So you're saying this isn't your underwear? Silence stretched between us. In the background of her call, I could hear office noise, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, the general hum of her human resources department at Morrison Construction's main office downtown. I'm not discussing this over the phone, she finally said. Come home after work. We'll figure this out. She hung up before I could respond. My best friend Nate appeared beside me, hard hat pushed back on his head, work boots crunching on gravel. You look like someone just told you the Steelers traded their quarterback. Worse, I said, showing him the original message. Nate whistled low. That's brutal, man. You forward this to anyone? The entire family group chat. Oh, snap. Nate's eyes widened. That's like dropping a nuclear bomb on Thanksgiving dinner. My phone buzzed with another call. My mother this time. I let it go to voicemail. What are you going to do? Nate asked. Go home. Talk to Elin. Figure out what's going on. But even as I said it, I knew something was fundamentally wrong. Elin's reaction felt rehearsed, like she'd been preparing for this conversation, and that pause when I asked about the underwear, that wasn't confusion. That was calculation. The rest of the workday crawled by. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach twisted. Family members kept calling, texting, demanding explanations I didn't have. My grandmother sent a string of confused emojis that somehow perfectly captured my emotional state. At 4:30, I packed up my tools and headed home to our split-level house in Millbrook Heights. Elin's Honda was already in the driveway, which surprised me. She usually worked until 6. I found her in the living room, sitting on our beige couch with a cup of tea, looking perfectly composed. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater. Casual, comfortable, like this was just another evening discussion about weekend plans or grocery lists. We need to talk, she said without preamble. Yeah, we do. I sat across from her in my recliner, still wearing my work clothes, dust from the construction site probably coating everything I touched. Let's start with whose place that is in the photo. I don't know. Someone's playing games with us. Come on, Elin. Those are your underwear, the ones with the little bow on the front, the ones you bought at that expensive place downtown. She sipped her tea. Lots of women have similar underwear. Not with that exact pattern, not in that exact size. I leaned forward. Who sent me that message? How would I know? It came from an unknown number. I pulled out my phone and showed her the message thread. The number isn't unknown anymore. I looked it up. It's registered to someone named Corbin Finlor. For just a split second, her composed mask slipped. A flicker of recognition crossed her face before she caught herself. I don't know anyone by that name, she said. Really? Because I found something interesting when I checked our phone records online. I'd spent my lunch break digging through our shared account. This number has been texting you for over a year, hundreds of messages. Elin set down her teacup with deliberate care. I think you're being paranoid. Am I? Then you won't mind if I look at your phone. My phone is private. We're married. We don't have secrets. Apparently we do, or you wouldn't have humiliated me in front of our entire family without asking questions first. She had a point, but something in her tone bothered me. This felt like deflection, like she was turning the conversation away from her actions and onto mine. Fine, I said. Let's both put our phones on the table. Full transparency. Elin stood up. I'm not playing games with you, Kellan. Either you trust me or you don't. Right now, I don't. She stared at me for a long moment, then picked up her purse. I'm staying at my sister's tonight. When you're ready to have a rational conversation instead of making accusations, call me. She walked toward the door, then paused. And you owe our families an apology for that stunt today. After she left, I sat in the quiet house, trying to process what had just happened. Either my wife was having an affair and lying to my face, or someone was playing an elaborate prank that had destroyed my marriage in the span of 8 hours. I looked up Corbin Finlor online. Social media profiles showed a guy about my age, muscular, with the kind of perfect smile that belonged in toothpaste commercials. His Instagram was full of gym photos and motivational quotes about living your best life and taking what you deserve. His bio listed him as a personal trainer at Fit Zone Gym across town. I'd never heard Elin mention joining a gym. My phone rang again. This time it was my sister calling from Phoenix. Kellan, what's going on? Mom's been calling everyone, saying you and Elin are having problems. I'm not sure yet, I said, still figuring things out. That message you sent, is it real? The photo's real. I just don't know the whole story yet. Do you want me to fly out? I can be there tomorrow. No, don't do that. Let me handle this first. After I hung up, I walked through the house looking for signs I'd missed. In our bedroom, I noticed Elin's jewelry box was missing a few pieces. Her good earrings, the necklace I'd given her for our anniversary. Her side of the closet looked thinner than usual. In the bathroom, her expensive shampoo was gone. Her prescription bottles were missing from the medicine cabinet. This wasn't a spontaneous decision to stay at her sister's house. This was planned. I went down to our basement, where I kept my tools and workbench. In the corner, behind some storage boxes, I found something that made my chest tighten. A suitcase I'd never seen before, partially packed with Elin's clothes. She'd been preparing to leave. The question was, how long had she been planning this? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, digging through every digital footprint I could find. Our shared cloud storage account gave me access to Elin's photo backups, and what I found there made my stomach turn. Dozens of photos I'd never seen. Elin at restaurants I'd never been to, wearing dresses I'd never seen her in. Elin at a beach resort during what was supposed to be a work conference in Cleveland. Elin in someone's apartment, laughing at the camera, looking happier than I'd seen her in years. And in several photos, partially visible in mirrors or windows, a man who looked exactly like Corbin Finlor. The timestamps went back 14 months. I made coffee and kept digging. Our credit card statements showed charges I'd never noticed before. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, spa treatments, all on days when Elin claimed to be working late or attending training seminars. At 6 a.m, my neighbor Mrs. Grafton knocked on my door. She was 70-something, retired, and knew everything that happened in our neighborhood. Kellan, dear, I heard shouting yesterday evening. Is everything all right? Mrs. Grafton had lived next door for 15 years. She'd brought us casseroles when we first moved in, watched our house when we went on vacation, and generally kept an eye on the neighborhood with the dedication of a security guard. We had an argument, I said. Nothing serious. She studied my face with sharp eyes. That young man who's been visiting Elin, he hasn't been around lately. I was wondering if that had something to do with it. My coffee mug stopped halfway to my mouth. What young man? The one with the fancy car. Silver sports car, very loud. He's been coming by for months, usually when you're at work. She paused. I assumed you knew. Can you describe him? Tall, muscular, always wearing those tight gym shirts. Very handsome, I suppose, if you like that type. He usually parks in your driveway like he belongs there. I showed her Corbin's photo on my phone. This him? That's him exactly. Oh dear, I hope I haven't spoken out of turn. No, Mrs. Grafton, you've been very helpful. After she left, I called in sick to work and drove to FitZone Gym. The parking lot was full of expensive cars and SUVs. Inside, the place reeked of disinfectant and ambition. Mirrors covered every wall, reflecting dozens of people in various stages of physical exertion. I found Corbin at the front desk, talking to a woman in yoga pants about meal planning and protein shakes. He looked exactly like his photos. Perfect teeth, perfect hair, perfect muscles straining against his FitZone polo shirt. I waited until the woman left, then approached the counter. You Corbin Finlor? He looked up with a practiced smile. That's me. Are you interested in personal training? We have several packages available. I'm Kellan Brooks. The smile faltered for just a moment. I'm sorry, should I know that name? You sent me a text message yesterday about my wife's underwear. His face went completely blank. I think there's been some mistake. No mistake. I have your number. I have the message. I have photos of you with my wife. Corbin glanced around the gym, probably checking to see who might be listening. Look, I don't know what you think is going on, but I think you've been having an affair with my wife for over a year. I think you got careless and decided to brag about it. And I think you picked the wrong husband to mess with. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I'll leave, but this conversation isn't over. I walked out, my hands shaking with anger. In the parking lot, I spotted the silver sports car Mrs. Grafton had described, a BMW convertible with personalized plates reading Fitz1. I took photos of the car, the license plate, and the gym. Then I drove to Maris's apartment complex across town. Maris Ventor was Elin's younger sister, 28 years old, unmarried, and perpetually jealous of anyone who had what she wanted. She worked as a receptionist at a dental office and lived in a trendy apartment complex that probably cost more than she could afford. I found her apartment and knocked. When she opened the door, her face immediately showed guilt. Kellan, hi. Elin's not here. I know where Elin is. I want to talk to you. I don't think that's a good idea. 5 minutes, then I'll leave. Maris reluctantly let me in. Her apartment was decorated in that generic modern style that looked like a furniture store showroom, all gray and white with fake plants and motivational wall art. You knew, I said without sitting down. About Corbin? She perched on the edge of her couch, fidgeting with her hands. I don't know what you mean. Maris, I've known you for 6 years. You're a terrible liar. You knew about the affair. It's not an affair, she said quickly, then caught herself. What is it then? It's complicated. Uncomplicated for me. She was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with something. Finally, Elin hasn't been happy for a long time. So she decided to cheat instead of talking to me about it? She tried talking to you. You never listen. That stung because there was probably some truth to it. I worked long hours, came home tired, spent weekends catching up on household projects. When had Elin and I last had a real conversation about anything important? When did it start? I asked. I'm not going to betray my sister. She already betrayed our marriage. I'm just trying to understand how we got here. Maris looked miserable. She met him at the gym about 1.5 years ago. She joined to get in shape, remember? You encouraged her to do that. I did remember. Elin had been complaining about feeling out of shape, and I'd suggested she find an activity she enjoyed. I'd even offered to pay for a gym membership. At first it was just training sessions, Maris continued, but then they started talking, and she felt like he really understood her, like he saw her as more than just a wife and employee. So she started sleeping with him? It wasn't like that. It was emotional first. She felt appreciated, valued. When was the last time you told her she was beautiful? Another hit that landed. When had I last told Elin she was beautiful? When had I last really looked at her, instead of just seeing her as part of the routine? That doesn't justify cheating, I said. No, it doesn't, but maybe it explains it. How long have you known? About 6 months. She needed someone to talk to. And you didn't think I deserved to know. I told her she should either fix her marriage or end it. I didn't think she should keep living a double life. But you helped her do exactly that. Maris's face crumpled. She's my sister. She was miserable. I just wanted her to be happy. I left Maris's apartment feeling worse than when I'd arrived. Part of me wanted to blame Corbin entirely, to see him as some predator who'd stolen my wife. But the truth was more complicated and more painful. My marriage had been failing long before Corbin appeared. I'd been so focused on work, on providing, on checking off the boxes of responsible adulthood, that I'd stopped seeing Elin as a person with her own needs and dreams. That didn't excuse the cheating. It didn't excuse the lies. But it helped explain how we'd gotten here. I drove to Darla's Tavern, a dive bar near the construction site where I sometimes grabbed dinner when working late. The place was dark and comfortable, with worn wooden tables and a bartender who minded her own business. Darla herself was working the afternoon shift, a woman in her 50s with graying hair and sharp eyes who'd seen every kind of human drama play out in her establishment. "You look like someone who needs a beer and some bad advice," she said when I sat at the bar. "Just the beer for now." She set a cold bottle in front of me. "Heard through the grapevine you're having some domestic troubles." Word traveled fast in our circle. Half the guys on my crew probably knew about the family group chat incident by now. "Something like that." "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." Darla nodded and moved on to other customers. I sat there drinking my beer, trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wanted to fight for my marriage, to win Elin back somehow. Part of me wanted to make Corbin pay for what he'd done, and part of me just wanted to disappear and start over somewhere else. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at Central Park, by the fountain. Come alone." See. Corbin wanted to meet. This could be an apology, an explanation, or a trap. Given everything that had happened, I was betting on trap. But I was curious enough to find out. Central Park sat in the middle of downtown, a small green space surrounded by office buildings and coffee shops. The fountain in the center was a popular lunch spot for office workers, which meant plenty of witnesses if Corbin was planning something stupid. I arrived first and waited on a bench with a clear view of all the approaches. 15 minutes later, Corbin appeared, looking nervous and checking over his shoulder like he expected to be followed. He sat on the opposite end of my bench, maintaining distance. "Thanks for coming," he said. "Talk." "Look, this whole thing got out of hand. I never meant for you to find out like that." "How did you mean for me to find out?" He was quiet for a moment. "I didn't send that message." "Your phone number sent it." "Someone else used my phone. It was stolen 2 weeks ago from my car at the gym. I filed a police report." I studied his face, looking for tells. He seemed genuinely nervous, not cocky like he'd been at the gym. "Who stole it?" "I don't know. Could have been anyone. I leave my car unlocked sometimes when I'm just running in for a few minutes." "So, some random person stole your phone and decided to blow up my marriage for fun?" "Maybe it wasn't random. Maybe someone wanted to cause problems for me and Elin." "Problems for you and Elin," I repeated, "like you're a couple." "We are." At least he was being honest now. "For how long?" "About a year." "And you thought I'd never find out?" Corbin shifted uncomfortably. "She was going to tell you. She was working up to it." "By packing a suitcase and planning to disappear?" His surprise looked genuine. "What suitcase?" "The one hidden in my basement. Looks like she's been planning her exit strategy for a while." "She never mentioned that to me." We sat in silence for a few minutes, watching office workers hurry past with their lunch orders and coffee cups. "What do you want from me?" I finally asked. "I want you to know I'm not some homewrecker. I didn't pursue a married woman. Elin told me her marriage was over long before we got together." "Was it over?" "According to her, you two were like roommates. No intimacy, no communication, just going through the motions." That stung because it was probably accurate. When had Elin and I last been intimate? When had we last had a real conversation about anything deeper than schedules and household maintenance? That doesn't give her the right to cheat. No, it doesn't, but it explains why she was open to something new. Something new like you. Like someone who paid attention to her. Someone who asked about her day and actually listened to the answer. Someone who made her feel desired. Each word was like a small blade, not because Corbin was trying to hurt me, but because he was describing everything I'd failed to do as a husband. "So what now?" I asked. And now she's scared. That message to your family humiliated her. Everyone knows about us now, her parents, your parents, everyone. Good. Maybe she should be humiliated. Maybe, but humiliated people do desperate things. Something in his tone made me look at him more carefully. "What kind of desperate things?" "She's talking about moving away, starting over somewhere else." "With you?" "She asked me to come with her." "And?" "I don't know. This is my home. My business is here. My life is here." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Sounds like you have a decision to make." "So do you." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Are you going to fight for her or let her go?" The question caught me off guard. Was I going to fight for Elin? Did I want to save a marriage that had been slowly falling apart for years? Or was this my chance to start over too? I don't know, I admitted. Corbin nodded like he understood. For what it's worth, she still cares about you. She talks about you all the time, good things, mostly. She has a funny way of showing it. Yeah, well, people are complicated. We sat there for another few minutes, two men who'd been connected by circumstances neither of us had fully controlled. Can I ask you something? I said. Why did you want to meet? What's the point of this conversation? Corbin was quiet for a long time. Because I wanted you to know I'm not a monster. I'm just a guy who fell for someone who was already unhappy, and I wanted to apologize for the pain this has caused you. Apology noted. And because I think someone's trying to hurt all of us. What do you mean? That message didn't come from me. Someone wanted to expose the affair in the most damaging way possible. Someone who knew about us but wanted to cause maximum chaos. Who? I don't know. But whoever it was knows both of us well enough to have access to personal information. I thought about that as I walked back to my truck. Who knew about the affair besides Corbin, Elin, and Maris? Who had access to Corbin's phone? Who would want to cause problems for all of us? That evening, I drove past Maris's apartment complex. Elin's Honda was in the parking lot, confirming she was staying there. I sat in my truck for a while, trying to decide whether to go up and talk to her. Before I could make up my mind, my phone rang. Elin's number. I saw your truck, she said without preamble. Are you stalking me now? I was thinking about coming up to talk. I don't want to talk to you right now. When will you want to talk? When you're ready to apologize for humiliating me. Apologize? You're the one having an affair. And you're the one who broadcast it to our entire family without giving me a chance to explain. Explain what? How long you've been lying to me? The conversation was heading nowhere productive. We were both angry, both hurt, both saying things designed to wound rather than communicate. I'm filing for divorce, she said suddenly. The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd been expecting them. Fine, I said. I'll make it easy for you. What's that supposed to mean? It means I won't contest it. You want out? Get out. I hung up before she could respond. Back home, I sat in my kitchen with a beer and tried to process the day. My marriage was over. That much was clear. The question now was how messy the ending would be. I thought about what Corbin had said about someone trying to hurt all of us. The more I considered it, the more it made sense. The timing of that message was too perfect, too calculated to cause maximum damage. Someone had wanted to expose the affair in the most painful way possible. Someone who knew about Corbin's phone being stolen. Someone who had access to personal information about all of us. I opened my laptop and started making a list of everyone who might have motive and opportunity. It was a short list, but it included some surprising names. By the time I went to bed, I had a plan. If someone was playing games with my life, I was going to find out who it was, and then I was going to return the favor. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Janet Driscoll had handled the legal work when we bought our house, and she'd always struck me as someone who didn't take nonsense from anyone. Kellan, I heard through the grapevine you might need my services, she said when her secretary put me through. Word travels fast. Small town, big mouths. What can I do for you? Elin wants a divorce. I want to make sure I don't get screwed in the process. Smart man. Can you come in this afternoon? We need to talk about assets, debts, and strategy. I took the afternoon off and met Janet at her downtown office. She was in her 50s, sharp-dressed, with the kind of direct manner that probably intimidated opposing counsel. Tell me everything, she said, pulling out a legal pad. I walked her through the timeline, the mysterious message, the family group chat disaster, discovering the affair, finding evidence of Elin's preparation to leave. Do you have documentation of the affair? She asked. I showed her the photos from the cloud storage, the credit card statements, the text message records I'd pulled from our phone account. This is good, she said, reviewing everything. Pennsylvania isn't a no-fault state, so adultery can affect the division of assets, especially if marital funds were used to support the affair. What does that mean in practical terms? It means those expensive dinners and hotel rooms she paid for with your joint credit card could work in your favor. It means if she tries to claim half of everything, we can argue she already spent her share on her boyfriend. That was satisfying to hear, but I had bigger concerns. There's something else. I think someone set this whole thing up. I explained Corbin's claim about his stolen phone and his theory that someone wanted to expose the affair in the most damaging way possible. Janet leaned back in her chair. That's interesting. If true, it suggests someone with intimate knowledge of the situation and access to personal information. Any way to prove it? Maybe, We can subpoena phone records, trace the message back to its source. If someone else sent it using Corbin's phone, there might be digital evidence. How long would that take? Weeks, maybe months, and it's expensive. The question is whether it's worth it. What do you mean? I mean, does it matter who sent the message? The affair still happened, the marriage is still over. Proving someone else exposed it doesn't change the fundamental facts. She had a point. But something about the whole situation bothered me. The timing felt too convenient, too calculated. Let me think about it, I said. Fair enough. In the meantime, I'm going to file a response to the divorce petition and start gathering financial records. Don't sign anything Elin gives you. Don't agree to anything without running it past me first. What about the house? You're both on the deed, so neither of you can force the other out without a court order. But given that she's the one who left, you have a stronger claim to continued occupancy. That was something, at least. I spent the rest of the week in a strange routine. Work during the day, investigation in the evening. I drove past the gym where Corbin worked, noting his schedule. I checked our credit card statements for patterns I'd missed. I reviewed months of phone records, looking for clues. What I found was a picture of a marriage that had been unraveling far longer than I'd realized. The affair was only the final symptom, not the underlying problem. But I also found something else. Irregularities in our joint checking account. Small transfers I didn't remember making, payments to companies I'd never heard of. I called the bank and requested detailed records for the past 2 years. What they sent me made my stomach turn. Over the past 18 months, $94,000 had been transferred out of our joint savings account. The transfers were made online using my login credentials, but I hadn't made them. I called Janet immediately. Someone's been stealing from you, she said after I explained what I'd found. This goes way beyond adultery. This is fraud. Can we prove Elin did it? The transfers were made using your login, but if you didn't make them, someone else had access to your account information. We need to file a police report immediately. I met with Detective Ray Morrison, no relation to the safety guy from work, at the police station. He was a tired-looking man in his 40s who seemed genuinely interested in the case. Financial fraud in divorce situations is more common than you'd think, he said, taking notes as I explained the situation. Usually it's one spouse hiding assets or running up debts before filing, but $94,000 is substantial. What happens now? We investigate. We trace where the money went, who had access to your account information when the transfers were made. If we can prove fraud, it becomes a criminal matter. How long does that take? Depends on how cooperative everyone is. Could be weeks, could be months. I left the police station feeling like I was finally taking action instead of just reacting to events. But I also felt overwhelmed by how complicated everything had become. That evening, Mrs. Grafton knocked on my door again. I hope you don't mind me asking, she said, but is everything all right? I've seen some strange cars in your driveway this week. Strange cars? Not Elin's Honda. Different cars. Yesterday there was a black SUV parked there for about an hour. Today I saw a red sedan. I hadn't noticed any unfamiliar cars, but I'd been distracted. Did you see who was driving them? The SUV was tinted, couldn't see inside, but the red car was driven by a woman. Blonde, maybe 30s. She got out and looked in your windows for a while. That was concerning. Did she try to get inside? Not that I saw, but she was definitely checking the place out. After Mrs. Grafton left, I walked around the house looking for signs someone had tried to break in. Everything looked normal, but I made a mental note to install some security cameras. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll regret it. This was new and concerning. I called Janet and told her about the message. Save that text, she said. Forward it to me and to Detective Morrison. Someone's getting nervous about your investigation. Any idea who? Could be anyone with something to lose. Elin, if she's behind the financial fraud. Corbin, if he's more involved than he's letting on. Or someone else entirely. Someone else like who? That's what we need to find out. I forwarded the threatening text to both Janet and Detective Morrison, then sat in my kitchen trying to piece together everything I knew. The affair had been going on for over a year. Someone had stolen $94,000 from my account. Someone had sent that original message to expose the affair. Someone was now threatening me to stop investigating. Were all these things connected? Was there one person behind everything, or multiple people with different motives? I made another list, this time focusing on who had the means and opportunity to access my financial information. The list was shorter than I'd expected. Elin, obviously. She had access to all our accounts. Maris, possibly. Elin might have shared account information with her. our accountant who prepared our taxes and had access to financial records, anyone at the bank who might have been compromised, anyone who might have stolen personal information through identity theft. As I reviewed the list, one name kept standing out: Maris. She knew about the affair. She had access to Elin's information. She might have access to our financial information through Elin, and she'd been acting guilty every time I talked to her. I decided it was time for another conversation with my sister-in-law. I arrived at Maris's apartment complex at 8 in the morning, figuring I'd catch her before she left for work. Her car was in the parking lot and lights were on in her apartment. She answered the door in a bathrobe, coffee mug in hand, looking surprised to see me. "Kellan, what are you doing here so early?" "We need to talk about the money." Her face went pale. "What money?" "The $94,000 that's missing from my bank account." She tried to close the door, but I put my foot in the way. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. "Maris, I've filed a police report. There's going to be an investigation. If you're involved, now's the time to tell me, before this gets worse." She stared at me for a long moment, then stepped aside to let me in. "I didn't steal anything," she said once the door was closed. "But you know who did." She sat down heavily on her couch, still clutching her coffee mug. "It's complicated." "Uncomplicate it." Elin was scared. She wanted to leave you, but she didn't have any money of her own. Everything was in joint accounts. So she stole from me. She saw it as taking what she was entitled to, half of everything. Half of $94,000 is $47,000. She took it all. Maris was quiet for a moment. "Some of it went to other things." "What other things?" "Corbin had some debts, gambling debts. Bad people were threatening him." The picture was getting clearer. So Elin used my money to pay off her boyfriend's gambling debts. She was trying to help him. With my money. She was going to pay it back. How? She doesn't have $94,000. She thought, after the divorce, if she got half the house. I sat down across from her, trying to control my anger. "Maris, do you understand what you're describing? This isn't a wife taking half of the marital assets. This is theft. This is fraud." I told her it was a bad idea. I told her to just ask for a divorce and split everything legally. "But you helped her anyway." I gave her the account passwords. There it was, the confession I'd been looking for. "How did you get the passwords?" She had them written down in her address book. She asked me to help her transfer some money for a surprise for you. I thought it was legitimate. "When did you realize it wasn't?" "When she kept asking me to make more transfers, when the amounts got bigger." "And you kept doing it." "She's my sister. She was desperate." I pulled out my phone and showed her the threatening text I'd received. "Did you send this?" She read it and shook her head. "No, I don't know who sent that." "Someone's trying to scare me off the investigation." "It's not me." I believed her. Maris was weak, not malicious. She'd helped Elin out of misguided loyalty, not criminal intent. "Where's the money now?" I asked. "I don't know. Elin handled everything after I gave her the passwords." "How much went to Corbin's debts?" "About $30,000, I think." "And the rest?" "I don't know. Maybe she's saving it for after the divorce." I stood up to leave. "Maris, you need to get a lawyer. When the police investigation gets serious, they're going to want to talk to you." "Am I in trouble?" "You helped steal $94,000. What do you think?" I left her apartment and drove straight to the police station. Detective Morrison was in, and he listened carefully as I explained what I'd learned. "We'll need her to make a formal statement," he said, "and we'll need to trace where the money went from there." "What about Elin?" "We'll bring her in for questioning. If she used the money for personal expenses or to pay someone else's debts, that strengthens the fraud case." "And Corbin?" "If he knowingly accepted stolen money, he could be charged as an accessory." I felt a grim satisfaction hearing that. This was bigger than adultery now. This was a criminal conspiracy. My phone rang as I was leaving the police station. Elin's number. "What did you do?" she demanded. I reported a crime. "Maris is hysterical. She says you're trying to have her arrested." "I'm not trying to have anyone arrested. I'm trying to get my money back." "That money was half mine anyway." "Not according to the law. You stole it, Elin. You committed fraud." "I took what I was entitled to. By forging my signature on transfers, by using my passwords without permission, that's not taking what you're entitled to. That's theft. You're being ridiculous. We're married. It's community property. We'll see what a judge thinks about that." She hung up on me. That afternoon, I got a call from Janet. "The police contacted me," she said. "This changes everything about the divorce." "How so?" If Elin is convicted of fraud, she could lose any claim to marital assets. Plus, you'd be entitled to full restitution. What about the house? If she's a convicted felon who stole from you, her claim to half the house becomes much weaker. And if she's not convicted? Then we're back to a standard divorce proceeding, but with evidence of financial misconduct that could still work in your favor. I was starting to feel like I might come out of this disaster in better shape than I'd expected, but I also felt exhausted by the constant conflict and investigation. That evening, I was installing security cameras around my house when Nate stopped by. "Heard you've been having an exciting week," he said, helping me mount a camera above the front door. That's one way to put it. Word is Elin's in some serious trouble. Word travels fast. Small town. Everyone knows everyone's business. He handed me a screwdriver. Question is, what are you going to do when all this is over? What do you mean? I mean, are you going to stay in this house, in this town, with all these memories, or are you going to start fresh somewhere else? It was a good question. Even if I won the legal battles, even if I kept the house and recovered the money, did I want to stay here where everyone knew the whole story? I don't know, I admitted. Well, when you figure it out, let me know. I might be ready for a change of scenery, too. After Nate left, I sat on my front porch testing the new security system. The cameras had night vision and motion detection, and they fed to an app on my phone. I felt like I was turning my home into a fortress, but given the threatening text and the mysterious cars Mrs. Grafton had seen, it seemed like a reasonable precaution. Around 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the front camera. I checked the feed and saw a figure in dark clothing approaching my front door. I grabbed a flashlight and went outside. "Can I help you?" I called out. The figure stopped, then turned and ran back toward the street where a car was waiting with its engine running. I couldn't make out the license plate or the faces, but I saved the video footage. Someone was definitely watching me. The question was whether it was Elin, Corbin, or someone else entirely. I was starting to think this whole situation was more complicated than a simple affair and divorce. Someone had orchestrated the exposure of the affair. Someone had stolen my money. Someone was now trying to intimidate me into backing off. Were these all the same person, or was I dealing with multiple enemies? Either way, I was done being reactive. It was time to go on the offense. The next morning brought a call from Detective Morrison that changed everything. "We traced the money," he said. "You're not going to like what we found." I was at work, standing in the construction trailer with a cup of coffee, trying to focus on normal things like schedules and material deliveries. Where did it go? Multiple places. About $30,000 went to pay off gambling debts, like your sister-in-law said, but the rest went into an account we didn't expect. Which account? One belonging to Dr. Hale Trenwick. The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it immediately. Who's Dr. Trenwick? According to our investigation, he's a marriage counselor. Ring any bells? Then it hit me. Elin wanted us to go to marriage counseling a few months ago. I said I was too busy with work. Well, apparently she went without you, and apparently she paid him a lot of money for his services. $64,000 for marriage counseling. That's what we're trying to figure out. We're bringing Dr. Trenwick in for questioning this afternoon. After Detective Morrison hung up, I sat in the trailer trying to process this new information. Why would Elin pay a marriage counselor $64,000? What kind of services cost that much money? I called Janet and filled her in. "This is very strange," she said. "Even intensive couples therapy doesn't cost that much. Unless what? Unless she was paying him for something other than therapy." That afternoon, I got another call from Detective Morrison. "We interviewed Dr. Trenwick," he said. "You need to hear this." "I'm listening." According to him, your wife paid him to document your alleged psychological problems. My what? She told him you were emotionally abusive, paranoid, possibly dangerous. She wanted professional documentation of these issues for use in divorce proceedings. That's insane. I've never been abusive to anyone. I know, but she was building a case against you. Dr. Trenwick admits he wrote reports diagnosing you with various personality disorders, all based on her testimony. He never actually met you or evaluated you. Is that legal? It's unethical as hell and probably fraudulent. He could lose his license and face criminal charges. What was Elin planning to do with these reports? Use them to argue for a larger share of marital assets, possibly full custody if you had kids, maybe even a restraining order. The scope of the conspiracy was becoming clear. This wasn't just about an affair or stolen money. This was about destroying my reputation and my legal standing in the divorce. There's more, Detective Morrison continued. Dr. Trenwick also admits to helping plan the exposure of the affair. What do you mean? He suggested that revealing the affair in a dramatic way would make you look unstable and vindictive. He's the one who suggested sending that message to your family group chat. But Corbin said his phone was stolen. It was, by Dr. Trenwick. He had Corbin's phone number from Elin, tracked him to the gym, and took the phone from his car. The pieces were falling into place. So Dr. Trenwick sent the message using Corbin's phone, knowing I'd forward it to my family in shock. Exactly. He was counting on you reacting emotionally, which would support Elin's claims about your unstable behavior. And the threatening text I received? Also from Dr. Trenwick. He was worried you were getting too close to the truth. I felt a mixture of anger and relief. Anger at the scope of the conspiracy against me, but relief that I finally understood what had been happening. What happens now? We're arresting Dr. Trenwick for fraud, theft, and conspiracy. We're also arresting your wife as a co-conspirator. The case against Corbin is less clear. He seems to have been a victim in this too. That evening, I met with Janet to discuss the implications. This changes everything, she said. With criminal charges pending against Elin, her position in the divorce is severely compromised. What about the money? You'll get it back, plus damages. The court will likely award you the entire marital estate, given her criminal conduct. And the house? Yours. No question. I should have felt victorious, but mostly I felt exhausted. The woman I'd been married to for 6 years had orchestrated an elaborate conspiracy to destroy my life and steal my money. There's something else you should know, Janet continued. Dr. Trenwick made a full confession. He provided details about the entire scheme. Such as? Elin approached him 8 months ago, claiming she was trapped in an abusive marriage but couldn't prove it. She offered to pay him to create documentation that would support her claims. And he agreed? He was facing his own financial problems, gambling debts actually, same as Corbin. So Elin was supporting 2 men with gambling problems. Apparently, Dr. Trenwick also revealed that the plan was more extensive than just the divorce. What do you mean? They were planning to have you committed for psychiatric evaluation based on his fraudulent reports. If successful, Elin would have had power of attorney over all your assets. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. My wife hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been planning to have me declared mentally incompetent and steal everything I'd worked for. How close did they come to succeeding? Closer than you might think. If you hadn't received that message and started investigating, they might have pulled it off. I drove home that evening feeling like I'd survived something much worse than a simple affair. This had been an attempt to destroy my entire life. Mrs. Grafton was waiting for me in her driveway. I heard on the news about the arrests, she said. Are you all right? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. I'm so sorry about Elin. I never would have guessed she was capable of something like this. Neither would I. If you need anything, meals, company, someone to talk to, just let me know. Thank you, Mrs. Grafton. I appreciate that. Inside my house, I looked around at the space Elin and I had shared for 6 years. Every room held memories of our life together, but now those memories were tainted by the knowledge of what she'd been planning. My phone rang, Maris's number. Kellan, I'm so sorry, she said, crying. I had no idea about Dr. Trenwick or any of that. I thought I was just helping Elin get some money for a fresh start. I know, Maris. Detective Morrison told me you're cooperating with the investigation. They offered me immunity in exchange for testimony. I'm going to tell them everything I know. Good. That's the right thing to do. What's going to happen to Elin? She's going to prison, probably, and she's going to pay back every penny she stole. I can't believe she dragged me into this. I can't believe I was so stupid. You were trying to help your sister. That's not stupid, just misguided. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen with a beer, trying to process everything that had happened over the past 2 weeks. I'd started this period thinking my biggest problem was a cheating wife. Now I knew I'd been the target of an elaborate criminal conspiracy designed to destroy my life and steal my assets. But I'd survived. More than survived. I'd won. Elin was facing serious criminal charges. Dr. Trenwick was looking at years in prison. I was getting my money back, keeping my house, and starting fresh without the burden of a failing marriage. Corbin, ironically, had turned out to be more victim than villain. He'd been manipulated by Elin just like I had, used as a pawn in her larger scheme. My phone buzzed with a text from Nate. Heard the news? Want to grab a beer and celebrate? I texted back, absolutely, I'm buying. For the first time in 2 weeks, I felt like celebrating. I'd been through hell, but I'd come out the other side stronger and wiser. The marriage was over, but my life was just beginning. As I got ready to meet Nate, I thought about Mrs. Grafton's question about what I would do next. Stay in this house with all its memories, or start fresh somewhere else? I still didn't know the answer, but for the first time, I was excited to find out. The conspiracy against me had failed. I'd won, and winning felt pretty good.